So much.
Doesn't make sense.
I started practicing. I did a lot of legal work. Then had a brother named Austin. I did all the office. They're all the you're probably not right. I'll check it with you on the side of that.
Better words.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
How you doing, sir? I'm good. How are you?
Hello and welcome to the Shreveport Rotary Club. Got a nice group today and we're going to get started with song with Ross Smith and Major Pierre Smith.
Yeah, we got the two Smith together. And in this song, we are reminded that this land is our land. And we got a duty to take care of it from where we live to where we work. Let us sing This Land is Our Land after a brief introduction by our pianist, Mr. Smith. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York's Island, Northwest and Gulf of Spain. This land was made for you and me. I walked away the river highway. I saw me. I saw below me that golden valley. This land is proud for you and me. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to call on my friend Larry Avinsky for today's invocation.
Dear Rotarians, as we gather here today, let us take a moment to reflect on the impact of our service to the community. In this month of renewal and growth, may we be inspired to foster connections, celebrate our achievements, and embrace new opportunities. Let us commit ourselves to the Rotary motto of service above self, reminding us that through our actions we can create a brighter future for ourselves and those around us. Together, let us continue to make a difference in the lives we touch, and let us say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Larry. Please be seated. I'm going to call up Gregory Juno to make the introductions of our visitors today and those that are attending on Zoom. If you do have a guest with you, please make your way to the mic stand. While Gregory's coming up, I thought I would share a poem with you by Reverend Wishy Nolan. Wishy's not with us here today. Hopefully he's on Zoom, but his poem's entitled, "It's in Us." It's in sharing that we reveal our caring. It's in suffering we reveal our character. It's in our waiting that we reveal our patience. It's in our longing that we will reach our destiny. It's in our faith that we find fullness of life. And it's in our wisdom where we learn to be fair to all concerned. Gregory?
She's not on. Jesse has his wife.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce my wife, Valerie Gilmore. She's an attorney with Petit Armand Dunkelman Roberts.
Welcome. Thank you, Valerie. Good to have you. And let's see, on Zoom, we have Olivia Dossett, Jennifer Elliott, Jim Kowalski, Dasha Peak, Edward Taylor, Tori Thomas, and Robert Touchstone. Welcome, Rotarians on Zoom, and that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Gregory. Well, I see John Parsons in the back of the room. John, congratulations on being inducted into the Bird Hall of Fame. Congratulations. I know we congratulated Brent Latin last week, and I don't see Reg Abrams here today, but again, we're so proud of Reg being honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, and he'll be receiving that award at the Minority Business Opportunity Awards dinner here in a couple of weeks, and look forward to celebrating that evening with him. Now I'm going to call up Charlotta to give us an update on the Rotary Foundation event and matching opportunity.
Once again, I am thrilled with the response that I get from you every time that I ask you to do something that is for the good of the world and the community. We have seen any number of donations come in. This is our no-show event. You don't have to get dressed up. You can sit in your lawn chair if you're outside, in your easy chair if you're inside, and write a check. We are closing the QR code probably at the end of this week. We have to get that money into the foundation before the end of the month. What I told you, if you were here last week, and if you weren't, tune your ears. If you will make a donation to this effort, to the Rotary Foundation, that's how you'll make your check. The Rotary Foundation, the club will match that dollar for dollar. Now, last week, I thought I said that it was going to be up to a certain amount, but I was told, no, in my exuberance, I did not. So I'm a woman of my word. So you make a donation and we will match it with points. But I failed to explain to newer Rotarians what points are. Anytime a Rotarian gives money to the foundation, you get a point per dollar. And so it is through generous Rotarians who have points from past donations that we're able to match yours. And it counts towards your Paul Harris Fellow and towards your Level Up. So thank you to those of you that have already responded. If you have any questions, please grab me, and we look forward to making the goal of getting those monies in by June 30th. And then in 3 years, 25% of that money will come back. Actually 50% comes back, but we can use 25% for district grants for North Louisiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotta. And thank you, everyone, for your continued support of the foundation. Well, we'll get right into today's program. It's my honor to introduce our speaker today. Justice Jay McCallum and his wife Deanna is with him. Wanted to acknowledge you. Appreciate you coming over. Justice Jay now lives in Farmerville, Louisiana. He's a lifelong resident of Union Parish. He was born and raised in Pisgah Baptist Church community near Bernice. I look forward to hearing if you had a red light there or not. Jay's the first of his family to receive a college education, having graduated from Northeast Louisiana University in 1982 and LSU's Paul M. Hebert Law Center in 1985. He also holds a Master's of Divinity from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. Justice McCallum began his tenure as an Associate Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court on November 13th, 2020. He was elected from the 4th District, which is the largest Supreme Court district in terms of geographical size and number of parishes represented. He serves on several committees, including the Louisiana Sheriff's Executive Management Institute, the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Criminal Justice, and the Supreme Court of Louisiana Historical Society, and was appointed by his fellow justices to serve on the Louisiana State Law Institute. Prior to becoming a Louisiana Court Justice, Justice McCallum was elected and served as a member of the Louisiana House of Representatives for 11 years. Jay also worked as an assistant district attorney. He worked as a trial court judge for 15 years on the bench of the 3rd Judicial Court. In 2018, Justice Jay was elected without opposition to the 2nd Circuit Court of Appeal. Justice Jay is a recipient of numerous awards and recognition for all of his public service. He served on the Louisiana Sentencing Commission and several other commissions and boards. However, he is most proud of being a husband, father, and grandfather. I got the privilege of hearing Justice McCallum a couple of weeks ago in Bossier. He's a fantastic speaker. He comes with a great reputation from my colleagues over in the northeast part of the state, and we're certainly happy to have him today. Let's give him a Rotary welcome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank y'all. I'm tickled to death to be here. I gotta tell you, Mayor, good to see you. Good to see all of y'all, but he's the mayor after all. So I gotta say hello. I am scared to death to be here today. I do a lot of speaking around. Been all over. In fact, since January the 1st this year, I and my wife, when she can, and I'm glad she's with me today, we've been over within the state. We've traveled over 18,000 miles since January the 1st, if you can imagine that. And that's not business travel. But Charlotta is the speaker police. My daddy told me way back before I met my wife in college, he said, I told him, I said, you know, I'm having a problem getting dates with girls. He said, well, I can tell you what your problem is. I said, what's my problem? He said, you're not asking them. I said, that's scary though, because if I ask them to go out, they may say, they may not go with me. They may turn me down. He said, all they can do is tell you no. He was wrong. I called a girl up right after that, asked her out. And I discovered not only can they tell you no, they can give you a long list of reasons why it's no. And so I got gun shy. In Charlotta, the Rotary Club is apparently gun shy of speakers. I have gotten no less than half a dozen communications from Charlotta, at least one of them in detailed writing. Do not make political comments. Do not announce a candidacy for anything. Do not make religious comments, and we reserve the right to pull you physically from the stage if you insist on doing so. Well, I'm a politician, and I have a Master's of Divinity from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and I'm an interim pastor at a little bitty church. So I'm terrified. So I think that slide's acceptable. That one's not acceptable because it tells you that I'm on the Supreme Court. So boom, oop, that's the old districts, that's the new districts. So those are political, so we'll get past those. That's a church, gotta get past that. So here's what I'm gonna talk to y'all about. But I have got to revise the forecast. It's gonna be a high of 91 today and humid in Shreveport. partly sunny conditions and not partly cloudy. All right, I'm taking questions now, but it's got to be limited to the forecast, right? It's all about weather. I'm gonna go back. And people have been asking me, where are you from? Well, I live in Farmerville, but I'm not from Farmerville. We say Farmerville, y'all say Farmerville over here. I want you to, and it's a one farmer town, by the way. It's not Farmersville, it's Farmer, just one farmer. But that's not where I'm from. I'm from outside Bernice, but I'm not really from Bernice. Anybody know where Bernice is? Rip? Do you really? Seriously? Y'all just saying that make me feel good. You don't know where Bernice is. Bernice is the home of Willis Reed. He used to play basketball. When I was a kid, we could only get 2 television stations outside Bernice in what we call the Pisgah Baptist Church community. We could get CBS out of Monroe and we could get NBC out of El Dorado. But professional basketball back during the early 70s was on ABC, and that was Channel 3 in Shreveport. So I'd have to go outside in my drawer tails and get our antenna. We actually had antennas back then on aluminum poles and turn that thing towards Shreveport. We could not see Willis Reed playing for the Knickerbockers, but we could hear them talking about him playing. It was like a big radio stream, so we could do that. So anyway, so I'm from the Pisgah Baptist Church community, and that's where I learned everything that's really important to me in my life, to tell you the truth, especially those eternal truths that I carry with me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about me for a few minutes, and then I have been assured that y'all will actually ask questions, which tickles me to death because my wife is glad to answer those for you. I grew up outside of Bernice, as you've been told, in the Pisgah church community. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to college, much less go to law school. When I was in the second semester of my freshman year at law school, I got a phone call in March of the year, and it was a woman with a loud voice on the other end. And back then, we actually had landline telephones. Some of y'all did not know what landlines are. It was a telephone actually hooked up to a long wire cable thing, if you can imagine that. You also don't know what a party line telephone is, and it's not one of those 900 numbers you see advertised on TV late at night. Don't call those up. We had rotary dials. You stick your finger in there and do all that kind of stuff. So anyway, she said, Jay? I said, yes, Jeanette. It was Jeanette Buckley. I knew who it was immediately. She said, what are you going to do this summer? I said, I'm coming home to work so I can pay for my second year of law school. She said, what law firm are you going to work for? I said, I'm going to work for Teddy Grafton. Y'all never heard of that law firm because Teddy Grafton wasn't in the practice of law. Teddy Grafton baled hay for people, and I was going to work driving his hay rake and hauling when I got through. She said, well, why don't you want to work for a lawyer? And I said, well, because they're not hiring up there in North Louisiana, and I just, this is not going to happen. She said, you ever heard of Armin Rabin? He was a prominent attorney in Union Parish, as prominent as you can be in Farmerville. I said, everybody, yeah, I've certainly heard of him, but I said, Jet, you got to remember, I never met a lawyer till I got to law school. I'd never seen a lawyer to know it was a lawyer till I got to law school. My professors, if you can imagine that. She said, well, I used to work for Mr. Rabin. I'm going to get you a job with him. And you know what? She called me back in 2 weeks. She said, all you got to do is call him up. I said, Jeanette, he can't afford it. He's a sole practitioner, a little thing. You got the job. All you got to do is call him up. Well, I was scared to death because I got to remember, you know what happened last time somebody told me to make the call and ask? I got no with a long list of reasons. So I called him up and I said, Mr. Rabin, yeah. Finally got my courage up. I said, Jeanette Buckley said, yeah, when can you come in and start? I said, this is great. I said, well, my last final is such and such a day, Friday. What if I come in that next Monday? That'd be good. Be here at 9 o'clock. I got there at 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, he came in the front door. He was in a storefront. If you know what a old storefront building in a small town looked like, with big plate glass in the front. And I was sitting there, and coming by the plate glass window was a silhouette looked just exactly like Hitchcock. I thought, my gosh, it's a movie director coming in here. But it wasn't Alfred Hitchcock, it was Mr. Rabin. He took me back. He said, you see that pile of transcripts? I said, yes, sir. He said, I need a brief in 2 weeks for the Court of Appeal. Turned around and walked out. Man, a few words. I worked with him all summer. He gave me a key to the office so I could work late and come in early. I went and I said, well, I told you such and such is my last day, so I won't, this is my last day. I got to go back to law school. And I slid the key over to him on his desk. He slid it back. He said, don't you come home to see your mom and daddy every so often? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, don't you come home for holidays some? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, well, you keep that key. And when you're in town, if you want to do some research, and he had a fantastic library. I don't know why, he never used it. And lawyers would know what I'm saying. He had the United States Code annotated and the United States Code service. He had both of them, and he never went to federal court either. So can you imagine that? He said, you come up here and do all the research you want to. And he said, if on the other hand, you're up here and you see a file on my desk that looks like it needs working on, you work on it and make me a note, tell me what I owe you for. Can you imagine that? But you know what else is more remarkable than that? That for some reason, God would plant some kind of a germ of an idea in the brain of Jeanette Buckley, a woman that I had not seen or talked to in probably 6 months, to call me up and say, I'm going to get you a job. And when I got out of law school, I went back to Farmerville and I went back in with Mr. Rabin. And here's a great example of the providence of God. Our law office just happened to be located at 205 East Jackson Street in Farmerville. It's the best law office location in the state of Louisiana. You're a lawyer. You're wondering what makes that location so special, aren't you? Thank you for asking. It was located right in between Kilpatrick's Funeral Home and First United Bank, so we got clients coming and going. It's the truth. I don't have to make this up. I am one of 7 members of the Louisiana State Supreme Court. I am the only one of 7 members located more than 30 miles north of Interstate 10. And when I say that, I want you to think about it. And I'm located north of I-20, much less Interstate 10. I'm north of 2 interstates. And you know how close Interstate 10 runs to the Gulf of America, don't you? Are y'all alert out there? Okay, good. Okay. But I tell people quite often, if you look at me real close, there's not much to me except what God has used other people to make of me. Jeanette Buckley is one of those what I call but for people. But for Jeanette Buckley getting the idea to call me, because she kind of helped raise me, she and her sister kind of looked out for me. But for having worked for Mr. Rabin, and for some reason, he trusted her word implicitly. She said, I said, why did he think so much of you? Years later, talking to her about this, she said, well, I think it's because I'm one of the few people that could actually take shorthand. I actually knew how to take shorthand. And I said, well, I didn't think he used shorthand very much. She said he never used it. He had a dictaphone. He just was impressed that I could if he ever needed it. In case of a power outage, we could go on. I said, well, that's good enough. But she's one of those but for people. Every one of us is a but for person. C.S. Lewis said, you'll never, ever meet an ordinary person in your life. Every encounter you ever have is with an extraordinary eternal being. And you will, without even needing to want to, have an impact on their life. You will have a direct impact on their future. It may just be for the rest of the day. It may be for the rest of the week. It may be more long-term and substantial than that. But you will impact the life of every person you ever encounter. You don't have an option. The option you do have is what kind of impact you're going to have. I want you to be one of those but for people. The fact that you're a member of the Rotary Club tells me already that you are. You're wanting to make your community better. You're wanting to make the lives of people around you better. I've met a bunch of people here. I've already seen the Salvation Army. God bless what y'all do. Somebody works with the Ronald McDonald's house. Thank you for that so much. And then we got one guy over here who's in real estate, but you can't be perfect. No, I'm just kidding. You know that, right? Okay, good. Because I'm in the law, so how much lower can you get? But anyway, thank y'all for having me here. I want to hear your questions. I've got another set of slides up here, and I've got a personal peek that I'd love to talk to you about, but I want to take your questions first. And again, Speaker Police gave me a strict time limit. So if you got questions, line up, or you got to listen to me for another 10 minutes. And then I start doing these slide things, and I start talking about a case. And everybody loves talking about cases, don't they? Yes, sir.
Sir, we appreciate you being here today.
I'm tickled to death. Thank you.
Give us kind of a view of
Hold
what
on
it's.
a second. Real estate guy, I made a joke about, he's lined up behind you. He's ticked off. Take your time.
Louisiana Association of Field.
I'm aware. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
Give us a little view of what your usage of your time is like. How much time do you guys spend in the courtroom? How much time do you spend at home, looking through old law reviews? Give us a kind of a view of how that, set up.
Excellent question. And again, I want to thank my wife for oh, that's Charlotta. I'm sorry. I hadn't been home in so long. I started my wife back there. No, that was like a stupid answer to the question. Okay. Time is an important issue to me. The older I get, the more important time gets to me. Young people don't understand that. I didn't understand it when I was young. The Louisiana Supreme Court is the one branch of state government not located in Baton Rouge. It is located in New Orleans. So when I go to work, I have to drive to New Orleans. Although I don't have to do that every day nor every week. I'm in New Orleans about 3 weeks out of 5. We do a lot of Zoom conferences. And in fact, when we leave here, my wife, bless her heart, is going to drive me. I'm going to sit in the back with earbuds in and my iPad, and we're going to do a conference, and I'm going to do it by Zoom on the way home, as long as we keep a signal. And so I may be popping in and out some, but I'm down there about 3 weeks out of 5. It's a 6-hour drive for me from where I live in Farmerville to New Orleans, to the courthouse. Now, if you plug that into Waze, you say, I'm going to catch him on this. If you plug into Waze, Waze is going to tell you it's a 5-hour and 20-minute drive. But Waze doesn't have a sciatic nerve, and it doesn't have my bladder. So I have to stop a couple of times on the way down. So it's a 6-hour drive. When my wife can go, or when one of my research attorneys can go, that's 6 hours both way that I can read and study. Otherwise, I'm losing 12 hours out of my week, and that just really aggravates me. We have about 1,000 to 1,500 pages a week to read and get through on writ reports. We're in the courtroom probably 20 to 30 days a year hearing oral arguments. We don't actually take evidence, you understand? We just hear the oral arguments. If you sue somebody or you get sued, if you get arrested and go to criminal trial, all the evidence is done at the district court downtown over here on the square. That's where the evidence is. That's where the trial is. A judge or a jury makes a decision. If you don't like that result, you have the right to an appeal, which will be right up here across the street at the Second Circuit Court of Appeal in this area. And they have to look at your case in depth, and they have to write an opinion on that appeal. If you don't like the results still, and you'd be surprised how many cases where neither side likes the result, you can ask us to look at the case. You have a right to what we call a writ of certiorari. You probably heard that spoken about in terms of the United States Supreme Court. And what that is you file a brief with us and you say, please take this case. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I know I'm being recorded, so I won't be don't edit this because I got to explain it. We're not an error correcting court as such. We don't take your case up just because we might not necessarily have ruled that way. For the most part, it needs to be a case that has a constitutional question. It needs to be a case where maybe the Second Circuit Court of Appeal and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal don't handle the same type of case the same way, and we need to make sure the law is uniform. Sometimes there are cases that have statewide application and importance. We need an unsettled area of the law. Those type of things need to be where we focus our attention. But in order to get to those cases, we have to weed out about 85% of the writs that are filed with us. We only take up for full deliberation and full opinions about 15% of the cases are writ applications that we get. I spend a lot of time reading. I don't know a person on our court. Every once in a while, I have somebody call me and say, I'm thinking about running for the Supreme Court. But what, can you tell me about the job? I said, well, what district are you thinking about running in first? See, I don't want to run in mine. See, that's what that was. Okay. Yeah. Are y'all awake this morning? Okay. You know, I had an old maid aunt and never had a date, getting back that dating thing. And so my brother and sister and I decided it was our obligation to set her up. We said, Mildred, we're going to get you a date with the widower down the road. And we did. And so they went on the date. We didn't hear anything about it. But after about a week, we decided we better ask Aunt Mildred how the date go. And she said it was horrible. I kept having to slap him. And I said, well, I'm so sorry. We had no idea that Widower Jones was such a lecherous, touchy-feely kind of guy. She said he wasn't. He kept falling asleep. I thought he was dead. Don't make me come out there and slap you all around, make sure you're alive. So anyway, I have to read about 1,500 pages a week to do that. And then I'm writing opinions. And then we have administrative details we have to attend to also, which is kind of what those slides were about, if I ever get around to talking about those. Did that answer your question at all? Oh, I was going to say, we have 7 justices on the court, on the Supreme Court. I don't know of a single one of us who has a serious, passionate hobby. I got some things I like to do, but I don't get to spend much time doing them, but I wouldn't do anything else other than what I'm doing right now because I love what I do. I love the law. It's like continuing legal education on steroids, and it makes a difference in people's lives. Yes, sir. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge, for coming. You are a breath of fresh air. You're very entertaining.
Thank you.
So,
I laugh to keep from crying, I'll just tell you.
I understand my daughter just finished her first year in law school, so I appreciate your love of the law. Kind of a serious question. Today, we see a lot of attacks on the judiciary. As a judge, as Supreme Court judge, can you comment or give us some insight onto what we're seeing? Fortunately, it's not necessarily a state issue as much as it might be a federal issue. But as a sitting judge, especially a Supreme Court judge, how do you view it when people attack not individually you or a judge, but the institution that's the judiciary?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm probably not going to give you the answer you're expecting on this. And a lot of what we're hearing now is about the federal courts. We really ought to hear more about the state courts. So I'm going to talk about my slides here in just a second. You open the door for me, and it's okay if they open the door right, because it's their fault now at this point. I don't want that big hook coming up here and get me by the neck. Okay, Charlotte, we got a deal going here now. All right. We want unbiased judges. We want judges that are independent. And so as long as they're making decisions without bias or prejudice, we want them to be able to be independent. The problem with federal judges is there's not much way to correct if they're not doing right. The only thing you can really do with the federal judge is impeach, and that there just haven't been very many impeachments in the years. But let me talk something I know more about. I told you a lot of what we do is administrative. I didn't realize how many lawyers needed to be disciplined. And you don't hear about them up here because 70% of the people, just getting back to Interstate 10, 70% of the people in this state live below Interstate 10. 70%. That's, at least that's the last time I heard it. Maybe more than that by now. That's years old. There's a lot of attorney misconduct, but there's also a lot of judicial misconduct, and thank the Lord, we don't hear about it up here as much because there's not that much of it up here going on. You probably complain about lawyer advertising. If you lived in New Orleans, you think, boy, y'all got it good up in North Louisiana because it's not, that's real discreet, dignified advertising up there. It's amazing what goes on down there that they get away with. And we're letting them get away with it. We tolerate it. You got a question. I'm going to come back and finish up on you, but I don't want to dismiss your question. Go ahead.
I'm a business owner and I've got too many trucks and trailers. And of course, I'm like most business owners, been burned by the liability, anyway. The recent legislation that was passed, what's your opinion? Will it make a dent in all the liability issues?
I can't comment on legislation as such, but let me tell you, and this gets back to what I want to talk about. The best tort reform, y'all familiar with that term? You hear that term tossed around a lot. Okay, you know what the best tort reform is? I didn't think about this until a few years ago, and I heard one of my fellow judges say it. Now, actually, it wasn't a fellow judge, it was another businessman, I think. I was with another judge, but a businessman said, the best tort reform is a competent judiciary. The best tort reform, like the best a lot of things, is a good set of judges. So let me talk to you about something. In Ray Rose, boom. This judge had criminal jurisdiction in East Baton Rouge Parish. That's all this judge handled. Don't need to worry about the civil code much in criminal law. Don't need to worry about the juvenile code much in criminal law. This judge allowed a jury to change its verdict in a felony trial after the conclusion of trial, went into the deliberation room and got to talking to the jurors and said, y'all messed up. That's not what y'all really meant to do. What you really meant to do was do this. Came back in and changed their verdict. Now, I'm from Pisgah. I already told you that. And the most important things I learned was at Pisgah. And one of them was hopefully common sense, or at least a little bit of common sense. You can't do that. And you don't have to go to law school to know that. You cannot change the verdict. When the jury has returned their verdict and they've been dismissed, this judge had bailiffs go out and search down everybody and retrieve them and bring them back into the courtroom to change the verdict. Different case, kaboom, convicted of a defendant of a crime that does not exist. Again, forget law degrees. Common sense tells you what? Can you do that? No, you can't do that. If it's not a crime, you can't be convicted of it. Suspended 17 years of the sentence for a violent crime, a crime of violence, that the legislature said they can't get a suspended sentence for. Suspended almost the whole sentence. Used racial epithets and took the Lord's name in vain in open court. On the record. We spend hours and hours. I just got through giving a presentation at a continuing legal education seminar, summer school, telling lawyers to be ethical and be professional. We can't expect more from our lawyers till we start expecting more from our judges. And so I got to tell you, there's some of the criticism that we're getting on the state level that we deserve. Probably ought to get more. I'm surprised I hadn't heard more about this case. And what wound up happening to this judge was suspended for 8 months with pay. And you paid for her replacement for 8 months. And in the meantime, she got a $15,000 bonus because the legislature, while she was suspended, passed a $15,000 one-time stipend. I learned long ago, you don't punish a juvenile for truancy is not going to school, by suspending them from school for a week. That's what they want. I wrote a dissent. I couldn't believe it. You can look it up online. Anyway, I won't bore you anymore with that. So I'm sorry, that's not what you were asking for. Thank you for asking the question. We need to make sure we support our judicial system, but in order to do that, we got to set an example that deserves respect. And that ain't doing it. I'm just going to tell you.
Well, thanks for being here. It's a great,
Thank you.
You're hilarious. I got a question. Y'all did hear a case earlier in the year, or was it last year, regarding the 6th congressional district?
Hold on a second. So getting back to your question about tort reform, that's criminal law. But if you take care of the judges, the law will take care of itself to a large extent. So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, I just had a question as far as how the legislature kind of carved up the state. We had Representative Fields in here a couple weeks ago, I guess. Just wondering.
Is that what caused all this, Charlotta? Okay.
No, that's a long-standing rule. But
I'm just
can
kidding.
you just talk about, how y'all decide that?
Well,
and
we don't. It's the United States Supreme Court that does that. The last reapportionment that was done for the Supreme Court and Congress and the state legislature was done partly because of the congressional lawsuit that was filed, and Judge Dick, who's a federal district court judge, pretty much circumscribed the general boundaries, I think, of what needed to be done. And so a lot of the reapportionment, even though the litigation that case was involved in was limited to the Congress, everybody else took a clue and said, well, it's obvious kind of what direction we need to go. Having said that, that case has been appealed to the United States Supreme Court, and we should get an opinion from them pretty soon because they're starting to turn out opinions now. It has been argued, it's there. And so in the next few days or weeks at most, we should find out whether the current congressional reapportionment is going to be held up by the United States Supreme Court or overturned and then have to redraw them, or some compromise in between, because a lot of times they do that. So we don't exactly know what the outcome's going to be, so be standing by and close. And while the next question comes up, we have one, let me go ahead and say this. What do we do? What's the path forward? We have settled for mediocrity for too long in this state, in the judiciary. We've settled for average. And you know what? When you stand with 1 foot in a bucket of ice water and the other foot in a bucket of boiling water, on the average, you're comfortable. But that's no way to spend the rest of your life. The principle of movement. Judicial excellence is a destination, and we have to move to get there. We must be willing to take the actions needed to do so. It takes an educated electric, so we got to do the plowing before you can plant. Every farmer knows that. You got to plow first, right? Is your wife from Bernice really, or is she really from Lilly? Say, put your hand over your heart when you say Lilly, Louisiana. Thank you. People added Judiciary Commission members with a constitutional amendment that passed last February. 6 new members were added. I think there's going to be a change in attitude because we got 6 new members, and those 6 new members are working under a new set of rules, which were passed by the court on my motion with my rough draft. I think we got to do more. I don't think we all need to be paying people for a paid holiday when they act up and do wrong. You got to nurture, we got to water our flowers and pull our weeds, better training and monitoring in particular, but there's only so much training we can do. When we run for political office, especially when we run for a job that you have to actually do a service like judge or something like that, you're holding yourself out to be qualified to do that. I mean, how many times do you hear an election, don't vote for me, I'm not qualified? No, you hear quite the opposite. So voters, do your homework, and we're going to try to do better on our end. And hopefully with the new Judiciary Commission, we'll be able to do that. So thank you for letting me lead into that.
Thank you. And again, thank you for being here. I know in the current legal system that we have here in Louisiana, in most instances, and I think it's the case here in Caddo Parish, the district attorney's office is supported by the state and by the parish, and the public defender's office is mostly supported by fines and fees. That leads to an imbalance in terms of the budgets, but also in terms of the capacity that the offices have to recruit and retain lawyers and all of that sort of stuff. Just curious about your perspective on that, and if there's something that we ought to maybe be doing differently. I know we do it different than most other states in terms of that imbalance.
How we support financially the legal system, the courts, law enforcement, IDB, the whole works, is a big problem. And one of the problems we have with it, and one of the problems that I have in talking to your question directly, you're going to say, oh, he's not answering the question, is because it's so ununiform across the state. The monetary situation in Caddo probably is much different than what it may be in my home parish of Union Parish, for instance. And so, and in Orleans Parish is much different again. So it's really tough. The legislature has done has given a lot of effort at looking at funding the legal system legislatively, not user fees as we call it, the court costs and those kind of things. But we haven't gotten there yet. And I can tell you the Supreme Court is not kicking against them on that. We'd love to have that take place, but that has not happened. And of course, this year wasn't a very good year fiscally wise, revenue wise. So, my inclination is that we're probably going to keep limping along like we are, but I would hope that we could do better. And that's a really vague question to to a answer to a really good question. I wish I could do better, but it's just such a hit and miss proposition where you are. And it's a little more uniform now than it used to be. When I started practicing law in 1985, we didn't have a functioning indigent offender board in Union Parish. The new lawyer in town got appointed to represent most of the indigent criminal cases. And for a long time, that was me. I was so happy when somebody else finally moved to town. And so in addition to my practice at 205 East Jackson Street, but it was great practice for me, great experience for me. It got me in the courtroom, I don't mind telling you. So we progressed from there, but not as far as we need to go. It is a crisis, I can tell you. It is 12:49. And we got a drop dead time of 12:55, and I don't want to make Charlotta angry today. Because she can't hear me, I'm gonna talk to y'all. She looks like she could probably just get tipped off real quick, don't you think? He thinks so. Anything else? All right, let me say one more thing. I've got a free gift for you if you want it. I'm not gonna run out and hand it to you if you want it, but I give out little bookmarks. I've been doing this for 15 years now. If you want a little 2 Chronicles 7:14 bookmark, I'm your guy. It's got my name on the back, Justice J. McCallum. If you'll put gmail.com after that, you've got my personal email address if you want it. So you come see me after the meeting. If you want one, you can have one. Thank y'all so much for letting me be at the Shreveport Rotary Club. God bless y'all.
Being with us, and we got you a power bank for all that traveling you're doing. Yes, sir. Appreciate the good work you're doing. All right. We collected today $72, so $36 goes to lucky ticket number 420. Congratulations, Mike. Next up, we have a Shreveport, I Love Shreveport mug to lucky ticket 442. Congratulations. And then we've got, looks like the eggs are slowing down. Maybe that heat forecast that the justice mentioned is really at play there. We've got only 2 half dozen, right? Where's Andy? All right. You need to start feeding that sweet corn again. All right, for a half dozen eggs, ticket $3.90. Congratulations, Charlotta. And then the last half dozen eggs goes to ticket 404. All right, John, congratulations. So next week, we'll finish up our economic development series. We'll have Eric England, the CEO of the Port of Caddo-Bossier, here with us. So please come back and hear about all the great things that are going on there. Lots of jobs being created. Kind of this ties into a lot of the things the justice said to us today, but I read over the weekend that 30 days of consistency can change your life. A year of consistency can change your life. Consistency is what transforms average into excellence. Kind of the question the judge was asking is, why be average when you can be excellent? So what do we have here? A mystery bag? Okay, a rose leaf bag from of mystery products here for lucky ticket 437. All right, can be a 2-time winner. I'm gonna follow you to the casino when we leave here, Robert. All right, so that's it. I don't think there are any other announcements, so please stand and join me in the 4-way test. Of all the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We're adjourned.